it's helping dancers get over the anxiety of auditions is really challenging at any given age. And I'm talking from the minute they actually understand what an audition really means, all the way through professional status. I mean, I see dancers as they walk into the room and how much they wear their fear the minute they walk in, which is why I always say that my radar is on just by watching someone walk into the room. You can see where their desperation is, or you can see where their lack of focus, or they're hanging out with their friends. And then you see the ones that are coming in with 100% laser point focus. Like, I'm here to do my job. I need to come in and just do this. Why? Because I have to pay my rent. I need to be able to eat. I really don't want to work at Starbucks anymore, blah, blah, blah. That's at a professional level. These are adults now, no longer children. And so it's always a thing amongst people in general, the anxiety of the unknown. And that's what auditions are for many dancers. You have no idea if you're the right person walking in. You have no idea if you're going to get the choreography right. Like, there's a constant state of question, which is why whenever I tell dancers, you know, when you walk into an audition, you have to not focus on you. You have to focus on the work. The more you can help yourself by focusing on something that is bigger than you, then suddenly the spotlight isn't shining on you. And suddenly you feel more motivated, more engaged, and more intentional behind your time in that space. So what I mean by that is when an audition is going, right, and a dancer walks in, they have to already start thinking in the back of their mind, who is this audition for? In other words, who's the choreographer? Great, let's say it's Kenny Ortega. I'm going to pick him because for obvious reasons. And I know who Kenny is. I know what he expects out of me, and I also understand what, in regards to character work, that's something that's really important to character development, me being able to listen to the music and understand how this music is going to be part of the storytelling process of this piece on which I'm learning during the audition. And that gives him a clear indication if I'm just a quote-unquote technical dancer, or a dancer that has character, that's putting a lot of thought behind what they're doing, and suddenly his head is going to start turning my way. Well, when I know who the choreographers are, and I know what the intention is behind the piece, and I know that I'm there to do a job, I can't focus on, do I look good today? Is my hair right? Is my costume right? And because I'm thinking of all the wrong things to put a focus on. My focus needs to be on how well can I grab this choreography? How much detail can I grab? Very much like we had the conversation the week before, you know, applying justice to the choreography. When everything is bigger than you, and you don't put the spotlight on you, you put the spotlight on them. In other words, I'm here to show you I can do your work, and I'm going to do it justice, and I'm going to work as hard as I can to get this right. Suddenly, I have something to really, really zone in on. And the entire time I am there, my job is to now show him not just what I can do. I need to show him that they can trust me. I got to show them that I have really good work ethic. I need to show them, but not like, watch me, watch me. I'm just there doing my job. And it's so different when you work from a space of service versus a space of ego. And the two come across with two very different outcomes. Because you can tell where ego's in there. And ego sometimes plays into the fear of, what if I don't look good? And suddenly you have all these crazy thoughts going on in your head that now are a distraction to your time in that space. When dancers come into auditions on convention, which is, at least on Hollywood Vibe, we keep the environment as light as possible. So in other words, we don't cut anyone. And yet, it's amazing to see how people at the very end of the day, and they're doing auditions, and they only call up a certain amount of people to go up on stage now. How many people are like, well, I guess it's not for me, I'm going to bounce out. And I'm thinking, wow, you could still learn by just watching, knowing the choreography. How can I have done it differently? Oh, I never thought of doing it that way. Suddenly you have some extra little nuggets that you could take back with you, now go home, digest Like what could you have done better, differently, versus I'm no good. Nobody likes me. I'm not good enough. I'm not talented enough. Which, by the way, is going to feed into our next week's topic, which is about self-worth. So parents, you don't want to miss that one. But in regards to the anxiety, anxiety is so deeply rooted to just insecurity, not feeling that you have enough to offer. And I'm always amazed at the dancers that come in, balls to the wall. They don't even think, they just go for it. How far they actually go, even when they don't have the best technique in the world. Because they're actually willing to take risk. But if you are dealing with your own anxiety and the smallness of your mind, then you have no choice but to feed into every aspect of fear, which means you play it safe. You try to do it exactly, you try to do it as you think everybody wants versus putting your own sensibility to the work. I mean, there's so much that goes on in an audition. To think of yourself as the only candidate that can't get this right, you're playing away from your talent, and you're just playing into unproductive, distracting, emotional thoughts. And I tell dancers, when you walk into auditions, you have to walk in with business on your mind, not just how does this make me feel as a person? Because an audition is about business. This is not about good enough or bad enough. This is about doing your job. And that was something that my mom, at a very, very young age, had to teach me. I remember being young and having, these thoughts of, I don't know if I'm going to be good enough for them, Mom. And my mom's looking at me, she's like, how do you know if you're not even good enough? You haven't even stepped in the room yet. Do you know something that I don't? Do you know something that they don't? Like, she always had to keep talking me out of my headspace, so that when I walk in, again, my mom would always keep asking me, so honey, what are you going to do? My response to her is, I'm going to go do my job. Because when I put the focus on the job and not myself, I can actually go in and do my job. But if I put me in the forefront, then everything else starts to disappear. Your talent, your quality, your self-esteem, everything just goes away, dissipates. So it's really important. It's really important to understand how to separate, because business is not personal. Personal is not business. But it's hard when you're a dancer, because dance is personal. That's where I think it drives parents a little crazy. Like, how do they not see this? They're so good at what they do, even if they don't make it. And I see parents encouraging their children. But when the kid is still stuck into the loneliness of their mind, even encouraging them sends them sometimes even further deeper down the rabbit hole. But again, going back to next week's topic, this is where we have to really help them understand their self-worth. Because if not, they really can't separate the two. But when you're young and dance is about passion, and dance is a reflection of life, and you love to dance and you love the way it makes you feel, that when somebody doesn't pick you, suddenly you feel that you're not good enough. And that's not necessarily the truth. It just means you might not be right for the part, or you might be right for the role. I always tell dancers, you have to prepare for a lot of no's coming your way, because there's going to be a lot of no's. I would say probably 80% no's, 10% maybes, not even that, 15% maybes, 5% yes. And you have to be okay with it. Because if not, if you take every last single audition so personally, then you don't even give yourself a chance to see how far you can go, because you're already knocking yourself out of the game. That's the danger of our mind. So the more that, and I tell dancers, I tell parents, I'm like, if you can, give your dancer a kiss and just, like, honey, have a great time. Let them go. And when they come back, I told this to parents 2 weeks ago. Because of course we have the junior audition that happens literally at the same time as the parent class. And 2 weekends ago, you know what? I encourage you parents, when the kids are done with auditions, because they're about to go into lunch, do not ask them anything about the audition. Don't be the one that leans in to find out, because if not, now the child feels more pressure about not knowing how to answer, because they themselves don't even know if they did well or not. Because again, the distraction of Lord knows what they may or may not think, and if there's no cuts, you really have no idea. And there's no reason to play into their fear. But I do encourage parents, like, once everybody's done, give them a hug. Hey, let's go get lunch. Because I guarantee you, at that point, the dancer's going to turn it around and go, hey, you want to hear about my audition? And suddenly now they want to be forthcoming with their experience and share something with you, versus feeling the pressure of, what am I going to tell them? Because when they're done with that audition, trust me, the next thing that's floating through their mind is, what am I going to tell my mom? What am I going to tell my teacher? And when you don't feel that you done a good enough job for whatever the reason, that's why sometimes dancers, when they get called, sometimes are in a state of shock when they get called up. They're like, what? My name got called? I can't believe my name got called. How many of you have ever had a dancer get called up at a semifinal round and have didn't think for a second that their name was going to be called, and their names came up? Anybody? All right, a few hands have gone up. And you're looking at it, of course, as a parent, you're like, oh my God, this is awesome. Well, yeah, and they're thinking, oh my God, this is awesome. Because they didn't have any expectation to it. They just did what they did, and you just have to let it go. But if it becomes like pounding in the back of your head, did I do good? Did I good? Suddenly, let's say you do get called, but you've had these thoughts in the back of your head. If you don't let those things go, it's another distraction of what makes you not do your job. Like I said, your mind can be your friend and it can be your enemy. And we have to really help our children understand how to distinguish one from the other. So that when I say like the you versus the you, right? We talked about that a couple weeks ago, where the small you versus the big you. Well, which one is it? Is it the one? Is this one like the one that's got the self-confidence, and this is where fear is? Or do we have to shift the game a little bit so that the one that's got more confidence can literally stand, regardless of outcome? Regardless of outcome. Because I've seen very talented dancers not make it through an audition process. And suddenly it's like, well, I guess they didn't look my way. Or, well, I guess they didn't teach me the choreography properly. And suddenly it's everybody else's fault. And it's like, no, it's no one's fault. It really is no one's fault. If I have 650 dancers coming through my door, and I have a few hours to sift through the masses before I can even get to a collection of dancers, a manageable number, enough so that I can actually see, how is that, quote unquote, my fault? You stand in my position. You scan through 650 dancers, and you have only a few hours. And the pressure of producer and the and director and artist. Do they fit the role? Do they look right? Blah, blah, like the external side of, because they're that side, right? I'm looking for the talent. They're looking for that side. And I have to provide both. It is just the nature of this industry. But I would say the same thing could potentially happen to anyone that goes on an interview for a job. You know, you could be out of a job for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. It's been a minute since, it's been a minute since you've been able to even go into an interview. And the last ones that you have, you thought you did so good and yet no call. Well, after a while, you start to question yourself. You start to question your quality. You start to question what you have to offer. You will start to question everything about who you are. And that's how quickly the mind can then start attacking. Suddenly now, every interview moving forward, you're already coming in like with anxiousness. And that's what anxiety does. It works your every last nerve. So again, I'll say, parents, Before they go into an audition, just give them a hug, tell them have a good time. When they come out of the audition, don't bother asking. Let them come to you. Don't you come to them. I promise you, they will come to you. There's no way that a dancer is not going to come out of an audition and not want to tell you what happened. But you'll find that there's a little bit more of an ease on their end and a little bit more of an openness. They don't feel so trapped, thinking that they're about to go into, the Spanish Inquisition. How did it go? What did you do? What did everybody else do? Suddenly it's like you sound like the interrogator in a police officer's holding cell, and the guy's like, "What's going on? I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on." And we don't want to put that kind of pressure on our children. Our children need to start learning how to become self-reliant to their emotions and bring some awareness. And that's the one part that every parent can help bring to every child's life, and that's awareness. So if there is a separation between the two, trust me, there isn't a dancer on this planet that doesn't want to do well in an audition. Every dancer wants to do well, but not everybody makes it through. I mean, literally, no one on the face of the planet of the history of dance has ever always made it through. Every dancer has been cut. Some of the greatest have been cut. Fred Astaire, on his first audition, great story. Fred Astaire, 40 years old, mind you, 40 years old, not a spring chicken, goes in, auditions. On his dance card, the choreographer said, okay on personality, he's a decent tapper, he's balding. Those were the 3 comments for Fred Astaire. Now, if Fred Astaire actually had to pay attention to his baldness or to his that he's not like, ta-da, because Fred wasn't ever that. Fred was suave, like he was smooth and cool and collected. And that became a good portion of his trademark of how he even read on camera. And suddenly you have a sophisticated dancer, not somebody that's just trying to like, hey, look at my jazz hands. You're not trying to like impress for the sake of watch me. He's saying, look, this is who I am. It's got to love it or, you're either going to take it or not. And he became one of our legendary dancers in our industry. Everyone can play into their fear when they choose to. Or you can learn to work towards what you know. If you play into your fear, that becomes your constant and everyday distraction. It's a thing that keeps preventing you from stepping forward. If you keep your focus on your job, take it away from you, place it on the people that it matters, suddenly people get to see you. They see everything about who you are. And it's really quite awesome when you see those transitions in a dancer's life actually start to occur. Now, place that into everyday life. Regardless of going to college, work, relationships, it makes a lot of sense when you start to realize that if I don't just place it all on me, and I can retarget my energy, my focus, then I can be a great partner. I can be a great dancer to a choreographer. I can be a great student to a teacher. And suddenly, the ego that's more destructive, because again, we talked about there's 2 types of egos. There's the ego that should live on stage, that when you're on stage and you're on, you want to show everybody what you got, show it, absolutely. But when you're in that rehearsal process, that ego is removed and you're there to work with the choreographer, you're there to do your job. When you're in the classroom, you're there to be with your teacher, focused 100%. You learn to show off, you learn to show who you are when it's necessary. It's not who you are all the time. Nobody can work with that. Anxiety is the myth that a lot of people like to play into because sometimes it's our easiest go-to. If we can develop a new go-to, one that's actually productive, the world and the outcome could be very, very different.